Hey everybody, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Teri Hunter. I'm an intuitive astrologer, angel therapy practitioner, Reiki master, and empowerment coach. And today I want to talk about Mars retrograde in Gemini. I've previously done a video on the retrograde, but for a specific period of time, from the beginning of Mars retrograde, October 30th, through the 8th of November. That is a general sort of environment of what's going on with Mars. And because there's a United States election on the 8th, I thought it was important to talk about that separately. So today what I'm going to do is jump right into the signs and the house that Gemini represents for you. We go by rising sign. And I want to address, while there will be aspects throughout this retrograde period, I believe the square to Neptune is going to be pivotal. This square happens 3 times. We've already experienced it once. And I think that what this is going to do is sort of set up a way of being. So let me kind of back up and talk about what Mars represents. Mars is considered the warrior planet. It rules the first house of Aries. It's a fire sign. It takes normally 2 years to go through the zodiac, spending about 2 months in each sign. We are seeing it spend 7 months in Gemini. We have witnessed in the media the aggression, the violence, the frustration and anger of many people. And when we saw this moving forward, I think the first time this happens, it sort of feels a little bit shocking. When we go into the retrograde period, this is a time to review our actions. And so Mars now gets to look at how Mars is showing up. Is my frustration dominating? Is my anger dominating? Is my impatience or my aggression sort of setting the tone for a situation? And it would be very natural. The humans on this planet have gone through a lot of transformation over the last 2 years and a lot of frustrations. And we are feeling a stronger sense of our voice now. So Mars by nature represents the military. It represents courage and honor, individual power and confidence. It represents a passion and a drive. It wants to stand up and be noticed. It represents ambition and competition, facing challenges, stamina, achievement. It represents sexual energy. It represents weapons and accidents. And it represents surgery. The Mars naturally was for many, many hundreds of years the ruler of the 8th house in Scorpio. So we're going to see an overlay of the things that Pluto represents also being represented by Mars. So we're going to see a certain amount of sexual energy. We're going to see a certain amount of dominance and power. We're going to see Mars having an opportunity to be the hero versus to be the warrior and the conqueror and the invader, because that would cover Mars's energy as well. We're going to see Mars revolving around competition and teammates and sports figures. And Gemini by nature rules the house of teammates, workmates, siblings, our everyday activities. So all these things are commingling together. They're crescendoing in some respects. This retrograde is primarily during the holiday season, which is normally already a season that is rather polarizing because it can feel like I'm supposed to feel family and warmth. And then the underbelly of a lot of families can be challenges and disruptions within them, or people don't have families at all. And it brings up a sense of isolation and loneliness rather than connectedness. So Mars going through the sign of Gemini, now making a square to Neptune. Neptune naturally rules the 12th house, the last house of the zodiac, where we leave the physical body and go back into the collective as energy before we reincarnate again. Neptune rules spirituality and inspiration, faith and religion, our beliefs, idealism. It rules pacifism. It rules escapism. It rules our soul and the soul's ancestors, transcendence. We see it also sort of rule more challenging dynamics like mental illness and being a hypochondriac, hospitals, research labs, fantasy, both for the pleasure and enjoyment like movies and television, but also fantasy where we don't see the truth of something. We allow sort of this watery version of things. We see things a little bit with rose-colored glasses on. Neptune rules photography, meditation, abstract thought, spas, hotels, temples, altered states of mind, going back to meditation. It rules vision quests and psychic energy and dreams and illusion. It also rules deceit and trickery and illusion, addiction. It can rule guilt and shame, things that we hide underneath the surface a little bit. The 12th house by nature rules being alone, things that we do alone. We sleep in our rooms and we literally dream alone. So we're going to see this challenge between Mars wanting to be brave and assertive and address a situation fearlessly and maybe slightly aggressively, while Neptune is saying, I want to be compassionate about it. I don't really want to see that dark side or see that anger in that person. And so there's this sort of collision of Mars going, wait, look at what's happening. And Neptune saying, but look what can happen. Look at what, if we see things with compassion, then sometimes we give up our power in a situation. And I don't want to not have compassion, but it's a discernment of compassion. It's sort of, in many ways, the 12th house of Pisces is a commingling, and there's an empathy, and that empathy on the challenging side can turn into enabling, because we don't want to hurt somebody. So there's really a fine line of balance here. Now we see the idea that the square that's happening with Mars in Gemini and Neptune in Pisces is creating a dynamic for each one of us within specific houses. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with Aries and work my way towards Pisces. And I'm going to talk about what house Gemini is. Mars is in Gemini, what house Gemini is for you, and then where Neptune is also retrograding in Pisces, and where this square is creating a tense conversation. Now, let me explain how I see squares, because oftentimes we get the key words. It's a tense conversation. What does that mean exactly? For me, it means the instinct to act habitually, a pattern of thought versus an evolved thought, a way that I have been versus how I want to be. I think of a square, I kind of think of when you build a home, and when you put a square together, it creates a corner, which naturally creates two directions to go. So to me, a square offers an opportunity to make a choice. Am I going to default to the old pattern of things, or am I going to be a pioneer? Am I going to be innovative? And am I going to be courageous in looking at the potentials of a new way of being? And even if that new way of being does not appear forceful or effective initially, there is the potential for things to happen that are beyond our physical eyesight. And this is why I think Neptune and Mars are so powerful right now, because Neptune is going to take a spiritual approach. On an elevated level, it's going to trust its connection to the other side and surrender the instinct to want to push forward. That's what Mars is going to want to do. Push forward regardless of conditions. So Mars is retrograde through Gemini is asking us to review what we think, what we speak, what we are saturating ourselves with in the media, what we are teaching others. It rules our everyday communications and our roadways. It rules our cities and the roadways and the escalators and the activities with which we interact with. Our everyday running to school and picking up the kids, or running to Costco and picking up our supplies. It's a very busy house, and it by nature rules short bits of information. So we're going to see it. The social aspect would be like Twitter or TikTok, where we're just getting bits and pieces. And then Mercury is going to take that information on the road. So now, as Mars is retrograding in Gemini, the sign of the twins, I think this is giving us an opportunity to review the pros and the cons. It's not about relinquishing our power or relinquishing our sense of courage and honor, but more about being a strategic person at this point, thinking about how can I take action from an inspired place, from a place where spirit is giving me this passionate inspiration to move forward, or a passionate inspiration to sit still. We see Mars having to stand still when it stations in the sky. It's going to be at 25 degrees. Right now, Mars is at 25 degrees, holding itself sort of standing still as it's about to move retrograde on the 30th. And it's going to continue at that 25th degree as it's ramping up its speed. The 25th degree is the Aryan Martian Mars degree. So I really think that the Mars retrograde during this particular year of 2022, when we're seeing so many other transformational aspects going on that will implement permanent changes. And part of those permanent changes, I believe, are how we think about our influence over our own lives, about, the idea that thoughts are things, and focused thought creates an experience, and we work and we are co-creating with others, because as we align to a certain way of thinking, we inadvertently seek out others that think like us. And whether our thoughts are considered balanced or not, that momentum will start to draw in experiences. So that's why I think the square is here, and why Mars is spending such a long time in the planet, or in the sign of community, in the sign of children, early childhood experiences, and reviewing how much time are we spending fretting about something that we cannot change. That is the die is cast, the experiences have been had, and how are we moving ourselves forward? So let's start with Aries. Aries, your third house is Gemini, and your 12th house is Pisces. So when we think of the third house, we naturally think of again, our roadways, our teammates, our workmates, our siblings, our everyday activities. The difference between Gemini and Virgo, both ruled by Mercury, is Gemini is a very persuasive thinker and speaker, and is very flirty and fun and lighthearted by nature. It can be a little bit challenging in that, it moves so quickly that sometimes we get sort of excited about the energy that Gemini can bring into our lives, and then it sort of dissipates. But we've got Mars going retrograde. Mars likes to move quickly. Gemini likes to move quickly. So we're going to have an inherent frustration within third house activities for Aries. We're going to have an inherent review of our childhood. of our early childhood experiences, of how we are viewing the media. And I believe that the square to Neptune in the 12th house is asking Aries to really review ancestral patterns, unconscious ways of thinking and acting that may or may not serve the current evolution of your experience. As a child, I'm an Aries rising. My family would call me hostile and angry. And yet at the same time, I wasn't hostile for the sake of being hostile. I was seeing imbalances that I thought were unfair. And I wanted to bring fairness into those situations, while others were just passive about it. They're like, it is what it is. And that brought a frustration into my childhood experience. So as I've aged, I have not changed my viewpoint of the frustration, but I have changed how much time I spend and how I use it more as an inspiration versus a tethering me to an old story. So I really think that Aries, you're going to have an opportunity to see how you address things. With the 12th house representing escapism, you could easily escape in sex. You could escape in wanting to I kind of want to put it this way. You could escape into sports. You could escape into being justified about your anger. But I think the retrograde is asking you to, whether you're right or wrong, is it serving your happiness? And would you rather be happy or would you rather be right? Because I think that at the end of this whole retrograde, you may decide I'd rather be happy. And this is going to allow you to put things in their proper place. So any imbalances you've had, any childhood experiences, or let's say you even have challenges with your siblings, you may be able to just allow them to be what they are and not try to assert yourself in them anymore. Sort of allowing Neptune to erode the anger, to wash away the frustration to a bigger picture, and how this has served you to be a leader within your community and within your life. Okay, so for our Taurus rising, we're going to see Gemini be your second house and Pisces is your 11th house. The second house is where the soul initially experiences their voice, experiences our family history and traditions. It's about money. It's a money house. It's about possessions. It's about the cars we drive, the jewels we wear, the makeup we put on our face. And here we are looking at Gemini, which is, again, thinking, speaking, writing, our everyday activities. So how is Mars in your second house creating a little bit of challenge for you in feeling old frustrations coming in, historic family frustrations? You may even be experiencing frustrations within your networks. Pisces is your 11th house. The 11th house rules our hopes and our dreams. It does rule large systems, the nervous system, the World Wide Web. But here I'm going to go to my hopes and my dreams, because with having Gemini rule your second house, which rules the house of security or the house of insecurity, the house sometimes of that our possessions make us feel secure, having nice things around us. So here, I think that there may be a discernment about, Gemini is a social house. The 11th house by nature is a social house. Now we supersede the Pisces energy onto that 11th house, and we're going to see, is your network of people, are your hopes and dreams aligned to a deeper truth of yourself and what you want and the voice that you can express, or is it somehow tethered to an old experience? For instance, comparison to your siblings, or parents don't mean to do this, but inadvertently they tend to categorize their children. Oh, this is my easy child, this is my busy child, this is my challenging child. So there can be this sort of Taurus is a fixed sign. So you may be a little bit, have your feet kind of planted on the ground. This is the way I think. This is what I experience. This is what's happened to me. And then we're seeing, I really want to address your hopes and your dreams versus the network and humanity here, because I think the second house is a very personal house. It is about me. It's about my family. It's about my possessions. It's about my home. It's about what I find beautiful. It's about my money and how I make my money. And the 11th house is also a money house. So I think that you may have this trepidation between wanting to move forward in your self-expression. Neptune rules photography. It rules the movies. It rules television. It rules theater. It by nature would rule some I want to say the poser, which is also the actor. So now, is there a possibility that this square is asking you, how are you thinking about your own talents? How are you expressing them through your words, through your writing? And are you giving life to your hopes and your dreams? Because some of your dreams may have to do with a creative dynamic. And the square and the tension could be, how will that be received? I have trepidation about whether people will find my talents favorable. And I think this is where Mars is asking you to be brave and to really think it out. I was speaking with a friend the other day and expressing some of my own wobble in my energy. And she sort of took me back to square one. And she said, you know what, Teri, when you do this for the pure joy of you, for what you find, what brings you happiness, regardless of how the masses are going to respond to it, you'll start to pop the energy. You'll see things start to open up. And I think this is the same thing for my Tauruses. How others perceive you based on your social standing, on your possessions, on your income, on your beauty. I think this is now an opportunity for you to say, I'm willing to only care about what I think right now. And I'm willing to pursue those endeavors in a way that allows me to be inspired by my passions. And if I enjoy it, if I find it favorable, if I find it funny or interesting, then maybe other people will find it that way too. All right, let's go on to our Geminis. This Mars going through your first house is very, very powerful. It is really asking you to be brave, to be courageous, to be pioneering in how you're choosing to think about things, how you're choosing to speak, how you're educating yourself and others about who and what you are. The first house rules ourself. It's the experience when the soul and the physical come together to identify the opportunities laid before us in this life path. It represents our perception, how we view the world. Gemini is a fun sign. It likes to have fun. It likes to be social. It likes to enjoy titillating, exciting conversations, nothing very deep and earth-shattering. And while there is this opportunity to express a deeper part of who you are, you know, when I think about the twins, there is a part of me that starts to think about the face you represent to others, and then the face that you wear by yourself. And I think there's the potential that the commingling of those two things and allowing yourself to be fabulously flawed, be who and what you are. And this is not about like making excuses for things that you're not happy about with yourself, but actually focusing on the things that you are happy about and starting to bring them into a more visible place, because your 10th house is Pisces, and the 10th house by nature rules the public. It rules authority, government. It rules the rules and restrictions that are placed on us by government. It rules how the public sees us and our role within the community. Gemini by nature rules the community, the neighborhood. So I think it also rules our career and our work and how we're viewed within that. So I feel like this Mars retrograde squaring Neptune retrograde and holding such tight an orb for such a long time throughout the retrograde. Yes, there will be a period when Mars starts to get its speed up and it starts to really retrograde quickly, going back to 8 degrees Gemini, and then it will kick back moving forward. But as it gets closer and closer to the end of the retrograde, it feels as if the squares they last longer. The degrees have changed, but we still have this 3-degree orb for quite some time. And you could take it even further. A 4 or 5-degree orb is still going to have influence in this tense conversation between illusion and a pioneering, courageous want to put it in the 3D world experience. So Gemini, allowing this retrograde period to really ask yourself what's important to you. Where do you want to spend your time? Who are the teammates you want to work with? What kind of environment do you want to be in? And then allowing yourself the privilege of connecting with spirit. And if you're unsure about how that will play out, this is your opportunity to review what it would feel like, what you would think about, how your everyday activities would be, and then to connect with spirit and call upon spirit to give you experiences that will support the bravery of you moving towards that endeavor. Now we start to see Neptune as a very spiritual sign, almost this compassion for yourself as you journey in a public way to a new experience. And that can be very inspiring and be quite the teacher for those around you, rather than, giving up on yourself. You're engaging yourself, your wants, your desires, the truth of who you are, and then allowing that to play out in your life, which inadvertently plays out on your community stage, the people who know you. And they may be very much the supporters of this transformation. Okay, so now we go on to Cancer. Cancer, Gemini is your 12th house. The 12th house is the realm of the unseen. It is the imagination, fantasy, a little bit of delusion. It's where we dream. We literally go to sleep and we dream. It rules our bedrooms. It rules activities that we do alone. It rules contemplation and meditation, and sort of in some ways it's known as the house of self-undoing. And that's because the physical leaves the physical experience in the 12th house. It is absorbed back into the collective before reincarnates. And so there are, in this particular case, I think that Mars going through your 12th house is giving you an opportunity to put into action some of your more intuitive gifts, your self-nurturing, meaning it's important for you to nurture yourself through meditation, through time in self-care. The 12th house rules spas and retreats and ashrams and temples and transformation through reflection and contemplation. And so Mars in the 12th house is not exactly excited to be there. In the 12th house by nature, Mars feels a little bit slowed down. You've got to remember it's naturally Pisces. It's a water sign. So here we're putting fire and water together can create steam. And so I believe that the reflection that's being offered for Cancer is squaring your 9th house. Neptune in your 9th house of beliefs, of foreign travel, of foreign concepts, of so many things. But let me go back to the 12th house first, because I feel like Mars in Gemini is giving Cancer an opportunity to relax your mind, to take action through this endeavors of meditation. Even I want to offer it this way, because Mars likes to move. Gemini likes to move, and your 12th house is rather quiet. Okay, isolation. If you're in a prison cell, because the 12th house rules prisons, you don't get to move very much, even if you're on the prison yard. So I think this is an opportunity to take Mars's energy and your mind and to move that into realms where your thoughts are allowed to, I kind of want to say, relax so that spirit can step through and give you inspired actions, which I think will then shift your house of beliefs, bring in foreign ideas and foreign concepts. And let me say this for Cancer, because the truth of taking care of yourself is, you know, I've seen so many Cancer people say, oh, yeah, I know, I take care of myself. And it's really being just pushed under the rug. And then they go back and they're nurturing others and depleting themselves. So this may be an opportunity for you to really see the wisdom of self-care so that you're not undoing yourself, but rather giving yourself an opportunity to blossom. The other thing about the 9th house is it rules the judicial system. It rules higher education, like PhDs and master's degrees. It rules publishing, and it rules marketing in some respects, especially when we put the Gemini dynamic on top of it. It's where you write your thesis. It is also rules the Supreme Court, judges and diplomats, and priests, preachers, gurus, foreign religions, foreign experiences, foreign thoughts. So here's Cancer, having Mars and Gemini in your 12th house, really having you review what you're thinking, what you're reading, what you're speaking about yourself, and the opportunities you're opening up for yourself. And while it is making a tense conversation to your beliefs, you may find that you don't need to throw all your beliefs out, but to innovate them, to renovate them, to allow them new air, to almost take foreign ideas and commingle them with what you have already known in order to create a stronger platform for you to love and to nurture others. And I really think that this is an opportunity because the 9th house naturally is the connection to the angelic realm. It's where we ask the questions, who am I? Why am I here? What is the meaning of life? And the 12th house is where we contemplate those things. So I feel like at the end of this retrograde, Cancer is really going to have an opportunity to start to experience new things from a more connected energy. And the connection is not to that which you can see, but to that which you feel, that which you intuit, that which spirit inspires. Okay, let's go on to our Leos. Leo, Gemini is your 11th house. This is clubs, networks, social groups, professional networks, the World Wide Web. It's where the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the one, and yet it's also the house of hopes and dreams. So this is where your individual expression can actually serve a greater good, and also where your individuality is affirmed and confirmed and valued within the network of people, the group. It's where your individual contribution helps the collective, humanity. Where your individuality gets to shine and represent for others what can be done when we're not solely focused on me, but rather the we. So Leo, this is in your 11th house, and Neptune is in your 8th house. Pisces is your 8th house. The 8th house is always going to be a house of transformation, a house of death and rebirth. It's where the phoenix rises, naturally ruled by Scorpio. And in ancient times, Pluto was not discovered until 1977. So basically 40 years ago, the 8th house was ruled by Mars. Now we have Mars making a square to its natural house. This is really about being brave, about how am I showing up for myself. Leo is naturally a fixed sign. It rules leadership and courage. Mars rules courage and leadership. The 11th house is naturally Aquarius, which is the opposite of Leo. So Leo really wants that self-expression. Leo rules all things fun. So when we see Mars in your 11th house of Gemini, we're going to see you being called to take action for the collective and to, in some ways, be flexible. I want to say that because Gemini is a mutable sign about taking action, as Neptune brings forth opportunities for you to transform things that have been hidden and unseen within your own psyche. When we look at the 8th house rules other people's money, and we naturally think of inheritances and taxes, but it also rules our financial portfolio, our investments. It rules our debt. It rules intimacy and sex and the vulnerability that is happened in that experience. It rules the occult. And when we call it the occult, that differentiates it from organized religion. So here we see the honoring of the land, we see ritual, we see tribal, cultural type ceremony here. So when I look at Leo and I look at Mars, which I think is cooperative to Leo, both being fire signs, both being signs of leadership, this is taking leadership of your fixed thoughts, and how this is maybe in some respects, if you're being rigid about how that's supposed to show up for you, it could be interrupting your hopes and dreams from being birthed. And this square to Neptune could be a little bit where you've wanted to escape your responsibility or your co-creation within the experience, because the 8th house is always going to be a commingling at a deeper level than we see in the 7th house of partnerships, because this is the things that happen in the home where other people don't observe them. Most people are not being watched while they're having sex. They're not being watched when they have those intimate conversations about finances between husbands and wives, or between couples, I should say. I think this is an opportunity for you, rather than to think of it as a death, think of it as a connection to a deeper part of yourself that now is calling forth the leader in you to be courageous about your own wants and desires. And if your dominant thought has been on the lack of them, or the opportunity for you to co-create them. When we get into those last few houses of the zodiac, when I think of the 10th and the 11th and the 12th house, it's where we've had all these personal experiences. And then the 10th house is taking us into the public eye in our communities. And then the 11th house is taking us onto the world stage. And the experiences we have on the world stage then take us into that 12th house of reflecting how that world stage, and did we contribute to the greater good, and the reflection there. And if we're not proud of it, sometimes we'll escape. So when we take the idea of Neptune representing fantasy and illusion, representing television, movies, and Gemini representing writing, there is a part of me that feels as if, Leo, maybe this is an opportunity for you to put yourself out a little bit. And I want to offer it this way, because with the Mars retrograde in Gemini, I'm thinking this is more about reviewing how you've done that, reflecting on how you've done that, and the energy with which you've done it. What was I thinking? What was I speaking? What was my underlying belief about my viability on a bigger stage? Because I think that this Neptune retrograde is going to offer you transformation. And that transformation is not having to be perfect, not having to please everyone, but rather realizing that if you're pleasing yourself, if you're entertaining yourself, if you're feeling a spiritual connection to yourself, then that is the natural thing, that gift that you will then give to others. I also think this is going to give you an opportunity to see where maybe you've given up your power to another situation, and or another person, or another dynamic, or a I can't help but think my mother at one point, I don't know if this story is true or false, but through the family grapevine, I heard that when she inherited all the money from my grandfather, which was substantial, she turned it over to a financial advisor and then promptly lost all of her money. Neptune can represent loss and illusion. So this is where you may be being called forth to step up in your thoughts, in your speech, in your viewpoint of how willing are you to take responsibility or to take accountability for what you're creating in your 8th house, in your Piscean energy, in your commingling with others. Because you can also get very angry. There's the potential of being angry in looking at others not providing what you deem they should provide. And that even that anger, that thought process can be interrupting the flow of resources coming in. So let's go on to our Virgos. Your 10th house is Gemini. Virgo, this puts your work life, your community, your neighborhood, what you think, what you speak, what you teach others right in the public eye, right? Everybody sees what you do. And you may not think that they do, but, you know, because we tend to think the public eye is a large stage. It doesn't necessarily have to be. It can be how we interact with the people at the market, but it also can be how you're showing up on social media. Because when you overlap the Gemini dynamic, this could be how you're showing up on TikTok, how you're showing up on Instagram, short bits of information. The squares to your 7th house, which is the house of partnerships. It's the house of contracts. It's the house of business partnerships. It's the house of cooperation, diplomacy, harmony. And oftentimes, Virgo is being a very thoughtful house. You know, Gemini is in some ways, you're both ruled by Mercury. So there could be a strong sense of responsibility that has not allowed you to be in harmony with what you want for yourself. Because again, here we're talking about Pisces being your 7th house. And, you know, there could be this indication that you have allowed your partnerships to be dominant and not allowed yourself to blossom, being a little bit dutiful or dependable in a way that isn't actually serving your benefit. And I think that this is an opportunity for you to review those things and review the process of those things. And the potential that you may be escaping. I think, you know, when people talk about escapism, they immediately think of addiction. But sometimes escapism is control. It's working harder. It's like, if I work harder, if I'm more dutiful in my partnership, things will change, or things will get better, or I'll be recognized. Again, 10th house, recognition. This could very well be a lack of recognition, and Mars transiting that house could be inflaming a lack of recognition, because the square to Neptune could indicate an erosion or a loss of your individuality within the public eye, your work, and within your partnerships. Let's say that you're actually own your own company, but you own it with somebody else. You could not be seen as a 50% partner for some reason, or you could want to be seen, or you could start to, let's put it this way, Virgo, you could be evaluating how you're being seen. You could be evaluating how you're being perceived through your words. And you could want to start to take a more compassionate spiritual approach to those dynamics, maybe stepping out of the process a little bit and opening up to being more cooperative and harmonious, even if it's listening to somebody and you know that their process is not going to work, giving them a floor, an opening, somewhere to express themselves. I don't know what the dynamic is going to be, but it feels as if this square between the 10th and the 7th house is kind of asking Virgo, how do you want to be in these situations? How do you want to be seen and viewed by your community, your workmates, your teammates? Because the 10th house is career and work, achievement and ambition. And the 7th house can be professional contracts. It can also be lawsuits. We see that in the 9th house, but we also see that in the 7th house. So there could be this opportunity for you to take a more compassionate spiritual approach to any tensions you're feeling. And when I say spiritual, I want to offer it this way. I don't think it's begging God and the angels to make things better. I think it is a willingness to see how your process is contributing to your experience. And if your process has been, I must do this, I have to do that, I'm required to do this, this is my duty and my obligation, that may be what Neptune wants to erode. I think that the new order, the age of Aquarius, is wanting us to be inspired in our action, to be excited and passionate about our work and how we view ourselves. There's also a dynamic in the 10th house where we must adhere to rules we did not make for ourselves, the rules of civility, the rules of government, the rules of authority. So there's a lot of contemplation for Virgo in the next few months, all the way through January and even in through March. January is only going to take us to the end of the retrograde, and then Mars is going to go back through Gemini before it enters Cancer at the end of March 2023. All right, let's move on to Libra. Libra, this is in your 9th house of beliefs and the house of philosophy, the house of the search for truth and meaning. Who am I? What is the meaning of life, and how do I fit in with it all? It also rules foreign travel, foreign people, foreign places, foreign experiences, different ethnicities, different traditions, different cultures. And in the exploration of the unfamiliar, how does that change us and mold us and shift our beliefs? We see naturally in the 9th house, we're going to see judges, we're going to see the Supreme Court law, international law, litigation, values, morality. We see teachers, preachers, gurus, spiritual pilgrimages. This is where we see our postgraduate education, again, PhDs and masters. Also long distance communications. So here for Libra, your 9th house, Mars is transiting, asking you to take action in the way you think, in what you're studying, in your speech. And I want to talk about this. It's not just the speech to others, but the self-talk. A little bit of the challenge of Gemini can be called the monkey mind, where we get into this routine of thought. And here, Libra, which is a cooperative sign by nature, which wants to create harmony and peace, sometimes defers their own desires to a bigger picture of things, and not for its benefit. It sort of gives up its power. That's why I think that Mars traversing Gemini right now in your 9th house, giving you an opportunity to really review your beliefs, review your beliefs about your siblings and how they interact with you. And if indeed there is a challenge, there's also in the 9th house is associated with grandchildren. So there could be some involvement with your grandchildren here, because Neptune is your 6th house, and the 6th house naturally rules service. It rules our health. It rules our pets. It's a house that's known as the house of enslavement, the employer and the employee. And I want to offer it this way, because with Mars transiting Gemini in your 9th house and you getting an opportunity to really revisit how you take action on your beliefs, and if you move in a way that's authentic to how you want to serve others, and even more importantly, to serve your health. Because inadvertently, when we think about things we're angry about over and over again, it's erosive to our health. Many people are familiar with Dr. Emoto. He did the experiments on water and infusing water with higher vibrational words like love and harmony and peace, and how it affected the water molecules versus the words that were angry and resentful, and how it changed and morphed them into almost like monstrous looking shapes, whereas the higher vibrational words created very ethereal shapes like snowflakes. So I believe that your opportunity here is to come into balance with your beliefs, those that have come from your childhood, those that Gemini is always going to have an influence over your childhood experience. And now are we allowing for the evolution of that so that your evolution can serve others? And I want to say it this way too, because even your approach to your health, you may find yourself going in foreign directions in the sense of, well, I've always gone to a hospital when I felt ill, or I went to a traditional doctor, and now I'm experimenting with Chinese medicine or acupuncture or alternative methods, food as medicine. And this could really be helpful and serve others as you go through this experience for yourself and you come into harmony and balance with yourself. All right, Scorpio. Mars is in Gemini in your 8th house, and Neptune is your 5th house. Now, this is interesting because Mars was an ancient ruler of Scorpio, and now we're seeing Mars rising sign looking at the 8th house of transformation in the way you think, the way you speak, the way you interact with your teammates, your workmates, how you dispense and how you process information. And there can very well be a metaphoric death of certain beliefs. And that belief may be that you need to be assertive, to take bold, dominant action versus cooperative, inspiring action. Because the 5th house is about pleasure and fun and romance. Here we see it being Pisces. So there it represents fantasy and movies and television and where we look at things in a more dreamy like way. That's the way I want to say it. And I feel as if for Scorpio is always called intense and dominant, and we kind of the stinger of the Scorpio. I'd like to rewrite that, because I believe that Scorpio is taking no prisoners for our happiness, like asking us our deeper truths. So as Mars, the natural, or I should say ancient ruler, but the first ruler of Scorpio, transiting the house of thought, is asking us in a really Platonian way to dig deep into those thoughts, taking no prisoners into your willingness to transform those thoughts. My thoughts about sex, my thoughts about control over money. Am I demonstrating control over others, or are others controlling me through sex, through money, through having power and dominance over me? Now we also see the 5th house of Neptune squaring this. And I want to offer this for some of my Scorpios, because this could be the tension, could be your willingness to take action on your personal desires. Let's say you want to be an actor, or you want to be a singer, or you want to be a photographer, or you want to write stories for television or movies. This square could be that you are not initially sure that you are talented enough. And I want to offer you this opportunity to step through that and to say, you know what? I just have to worry about whether I'm pleasing myself. If I think it's fun, if I think it's funny, if I think it's entertaining, maybe it really is, because this 8th house is really about other people, and the 5th house is about me. Yes, it's about children and the procreation of children and romance, but it is the performer, it's the clown, it's it's this personal expression for the sake of the individual experiencing that. And as we get through the zodiac, we see us taking our talents into the opposition of Aquarius and having our individual talents serve the collective. So this square may be where you are afraid, where you want to escape your own self-expression, and yet Spirit is calling you to be brave and heroic and to be passionate and to be inspired. and to allow yourself the privilege of that expression. And in doing so, it could change your life. It could change your money in a good way. All right, let's go on to Sagittarius. Your 7th house is Gemini. The house of partnerships, cooperation, relating to others, coming together in unison to create something better for the greater good. This is about harmony through work and play, in business as well as marriage. And it's how we learn more about ourselves within balance. I believe that a lot of times when we think about the 7th house, I am a Libra, so the 7th house rules me. We cannot really implement harmony and balance without having polarities to it. The dark and light, yes and no, peanut butter and jelly, however you want to look at that. So here we're going to see an opportunity for Sagittarius to really examine and look at how brave you are willing to be to assert yourself and what you want moving forward in sort of foreign experiences within partnerships. And when I say foreign experiences, it could be not just dealing with somebody who's from another place, but maybe you've given up your power in your relationships. Maybe you've been super cooperative, and your belief was, if I'm not cooperative within, because this is squaring your home life, your 4th house. So there could be the potential that this is about you allowing yourself individuality within your home life experience and trusting that you don't have to conform to whatever that 4th house dynamic has been. Naturally, Gemini rules our siblings. So there could be this sense of addressing your siblings, your home environment in a new way, in a way with evolved beliefs. Sagittarius naturally rules the who am I, why am I here, these big philosophical concepts about the human experience. And the 4th house naturally rules my intuition. It does rule my home, my family, my patriotism, the country with which I live in, but it also rules self-nurturing. And there's different schools of thought, but I tend to think of the 4th house as the parent that is less seen in the public eye. Most of the time we think of the 4th house ruled by the mother because Cancer rules the 4th house, but I've come to sort of flip the script because the 10th house is the house of the public eye where we're seen in the public. And normally the mother figure is more prominent within the home life. You know what they say, happy wife, happy life. So I want to offer that there could be for Sagittarius a review of the parent or the experience that was within the home life that wasn't obvious to your community, obvious to your friends. We hear sometimes stories about people who purport a very proper upbringing, and then when they get home we find out that the dad is an alcoholic or there's issues underneath the surface. So somewhere there's an opportunity to transform your beliefs, to allow yourself to individualize yourself within the group, the family dynamic, without abandoning them, without leaving the family dynamic, but yet allowing yourself, Sagittarius, to go into new territory, to remove yourself maybe from the immediate issue or dynamics that are going on in order to foster a new experience for everyone. So as you take care of yourself, as you nurture yourself, as you go into your intuition, as you allow and apply meditation, and meditation can be not necessarily just sitting quietly, but allowing yourself to move through nature and to observe nature and let God and the angels give you signs and omens that help support this endeavor. Okay, Capricorn, Gemini is your 6th house. This is the house of service. This is the house of enslavement, the house of health, the house of pets. This is the house about everybody else but yourself. And Capricorn is naturally dutiful, obligatory, following the rules, doing things for the sake of the greater good. Now, the square is going to be in your to your third house. So Neptune is retrograde in Pisces in your third house. The third house is a house of thought, the house of speaking, writing, teaching, my communities. I think this is an opportunity for Capricorn to start to be a pioneer, to be innovative. I want to use the word innovative because I think as Mars goes into its pioneering energy, it is innovating us into new territories. And I think this is about rewriting how you perceive your service. Am I doing this on the agenda of someone else? And somewhere underneath it, I know this isn't working. Somewhere there could potentially be an erosion because Gemini rules the monkey mind. It rules everyday activities that I do on a hamster wheel that I'm no longer present for when I do them. Haven't you ever been driving your car and then all of a sudden you're like, how did I even get here? I wasn't paying attention or thinking about anything to do with my driving while I was driving. This is what I think is going on here. Capricorn, this is going to help you feel more vital within your health, to allow yourself to determine where you have been dutiful or obligatory, and it is depressing you, it is stressing you, it is making you feel pushed in and oppressed. And now as you allow Neptune to erode, to let it go. I hate that term, but I really want to apply it here because this will be the third house of how does my neighborhood, my communities, my teammates, my workmates, how do they perceive me? And if they have inadvertently depended upon you in an out of balance way, putting yourself at the front of the line would be a very important yet very tense conversation for you to have with yourself. I can't help but think of Neptune as that escapism. Capricorn could escape in a workaholic kind of way, in a way of amassing and building. If the more I build, the more I work hard, the more, because you could be the employer here. You don't necessarily have to be the employee. That's the dynamic of the sixth house. So I really want to offer you an opportunity to revisit and to look at with a brave eye how you're spending your time of service, and allow yourself to really examine your thoughts, because thoughts are things. They represent our beliefs and they absolutely dictate our actions. And while this tense conversation may feel as if you're having to make a choice between yourself or someone else or another dynamic, and you're used to picking the other instead of yourself, you may start to realize that by choosing yourself, you really are choosing the others, and compromise presents itself. And Neptune's energy brings in an inspired idea that creates cooperation and harmony for everyone where you couldn't see it before. All right, let's go on to Aquarius. Gemini is your fifth house of creativity, of children, of romance, of hobbies and fun and pleasure. And, I kind of got to think that Gemini ruling this house is not such a bad thing, because Gemini likes to do things fun and flirty and sort of pop in and check it out and see, what's going on over here. I kind of think of it as when I was a teenager, we'd go to one party on a Friday night and then there'd be a second party to go to. None of these parties were really parties of people I knew. They were like mass neighborhood parties. So here we see Aquarius having an opportunity to go through this fifth house and really re-examine how you're asserting yourself when it comes to your personal pleasure, when it comes to the conception of children, the raising of children in some ways. Are you having fun? Are you enjoying yourself? Are you giving permission to be your unique self? Because if there's one thing about Aquarius, it's unique in its thought, its innovation. At its best and its finest. It also thinks about the collective, thinks about a bigger picture of things. And your personal pleasure, your personal expression, your willingness to put yourself on the stage does serve the greater good. Now, Neptune is going to be in your second house of money, of your self-esteem, of the self-esteem and self-worth you learned from your family. And this could be a little bit of a challenging conversation, because Aquarius by nature is so innovative, and the family may want you, or the second house may ask you as a Pisces to relinquish that and to be more cooperative, more empathetic to others around you. And I feel as if actually Aquarius, it's not the most emotional sign because it rules science and it rules innovation, it rules the bigger picture. So sometimes the one-on-one gets a wee bit lost. And so here, when we're looking at the second house, this may be a conversation where you're starting to have to put yourself in the mix. You're having to start to say, my self-worth has been attached to something that doesn't serve me anymore, or it hasn't allowed me to fully blossom. And Mars is asking you to be brave in, stepping into first, what do I think about this? What do I believe about this? And the viability of it. The second house by nature rules my possessions. It rules the things that bring me a certain amount of comfort and a certain amount of social status, because other people see what I have amassed. They see my car. They see my beauty. They hear my voice as I sing. So I think that this is an opportunity for you to really take this tense conversation, and rather than have it be a fighting conversation, it can be a spiritual conversation, a conversation where Mars is the hero, where Mars is standing in a dynamic that says, you know what, I think it serves the greater good for us to express ourselves individually. And in doing so, we help create a spiritual dynamic of self-worth, where I'm going to interrupt myself, but I'm still kind of lining up. When we're little, we're taught to please others. From the minute we come out of the womb, good baby, good girl, this is my cooperative child, eat all your food, take a bath. And then we go into our school age, Gemini energy, and we're taught more of that. Please our teachers, please our principals, please the people in our communities. So this is where I think this is coming back for Aquarius to maybe pleasing yourself and seeing the spirituality of that, and how that is a compassionate and empathetic thing that allows you to stand in leadership for others and invite them into the experience. All right, let's go on to our Pisces. Gemini is your fourth house, and Neptune is in your first house. So this is really going to be where you are being tasked to look at your home environment, your siblings, your neighborhoods, your communities. Mars going through them and asking you to be brave into your own individuality, and where you have maybe commingled in a way that has given up your power to others, or it's pushed you into a place of being angry about people taking advantage of your generosity, your compassion, your empathy. And again, we can get pigeonholed in our families. And if you've been the one that has always been compassionate and taking care of others and been cooperative, and now Neptune is saying, what about you? What about you? Because Neptune is making a square in your first house of self. And this could be very challenging because you're not used to feeling yourself in the physical and feeling with your feet flat on the ground. There may be this dynamic where, when we think about the 12th house, it's a house of isolation and a house where we're alone. We sleep normally, we dream alone. We don't really dream with others. We go into ashrams and temples and worship alone and meditate alone. We may be within a group dynamic, but we're in an individual experience within that group dynamic. And I think that's what Pisces is being tasked with, Mars transiting your fourth house. How can you allow for your individuality, your self-expression outside, or that is different than what you have learned within your community, your home community, your traditions, your family dynamic? I'll give you an example for me personally. I grew up in church, and as I aged and as I became more exploratory of spirituality and religion and the various schools of thought, my dynamics have shifted. What I think about myself and what I think about God and angels and the connection to what I cannot see has shifted. I believe in the 12 universal laws. I believe that they are the keys to manifestation. My family is very religious. They believe God, and God decides whether or not we will prosper or we will be pulled under. I don't believe a loving God would do that. So that would create a natural square between myself and my family environment and what I learned in that environment. So that's what I think is going on as Pisces is experiencing a 7-month transit of Mars going through your house of home. You may be here, you're experiencing maybe upset, disruption, concern, trepidation within the family. How will these new dynamics be received? And they may even be how you're receiving the outside world, your community affecting your family. And now this is an opportunity to assert yourself in a more focused on self way. And I think that the retrograde of Mars is giving you an opportunity to reflect, to review, to see how you take action, and to see the wisdom of assertion, to see that Mars is not just an aggressor and angry. Mars is the guy that stands behind you when you're in trouble. Mars is the one that says, I got your back when you're in war, or when you're in, a high adrenaline situation, which is what firemen and police officers and heroes go into pressurized situations, and they're not thinking of themselves. They're actually thinking of others. And this is why I think Mars gets misinterpreted often. So Pisces, this is really an opportunity for you to take this kind of challenging, tense square between what you've been raised and the traditions with which you know, and the expectations that are naturally lie within them, and then allowing your individuality to be important as well, and to see it as a spiritual mission to allow your individuality within. It might even be a breaking of a tradition, because, if we think about the 4th house, there could be alcoholism attached here. There could be, well, Neptune is the 1st house, and we could say, oh no, Neptune's going to rule addiction in the 1st house. It could be that what you've experienced in the 12th house or in your 4th house has been escapism of some kind. Escapism through religion, giving your power up to God, escapism through drugs, alcohol, escapism through fantasy, and through clinging to that. And you're stepping away from that and individualizing yourself. I think it will benefit in the long run, because you're naturally compassionate. So as you purport this individual energy with compassion, you're inviting those that you love, those that you have nurtured or have claimed to have nurtured you, to come with you on the journey. Okay, so that's it for the Mars retrograde on a personal level. Again, these were based on your rising sign, whole sign Western astrology. My name is Teri Hunter. If you'd like to book a session with me, whether it be an angel reading, which is an intuitive reading with you and your guides as me as the interpreter, or an astrological reading, natal chart, natal and transits, a past life chart, a synergy chart, I am available. Please give me an email, drop me an email, or give me a call, and we can talk about it. I look forward to our next meeting, which is on Sunday, the 30th of October. I'll be live doing our weekly live readings where we get the angels' advice for traversing these transits. I will also be producing a November video to look at the dynamics in November. We are really reaching pivotal times here when it comes to opportunities to make high vibrational choices in life. We'll always have disruption. We'll always have some teetering on the seesaw of balance. But the more we make choices that are authentic to a deeper truth and to our heart and love, the higher vibrational experiences we put on this planet, and we really start to change some of the things we find more challenging. All right, everybody. Again, that's me, Teri Hunter. Peace.